Capitol Hill is moving forward this morning after a defeat in health care reform. President Trump and House Speaker Ryan pulled the plug on the proposed bill after a deal could not be reached between members of Congress. The president says the best thing may be just to let Obamacare fail.
Perhaps the best thing that could happen is exactly what happened today, because we'll end up with a truly great health care bill in the future after this mess known as Obamacare explodes.
So where does health care reform go from here? Well, joining me now is Wright State University Assistant Professor of Political Science, Dr. Lee Hanna. Thanks again for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So you hear the president there saying that this could be the best thing happening, but obviously this was something that was a campaign promise of his. The #1 campaign promise that you heard time and time again throughout the campaign was replace Obamacare and fix Obamacare. That's obviously not happening, at least in the immediate right now. What is this? How big of a defeat is this for President Trump?
Yes, we want to think that politics or governing is just about the substance of bills, but we know that optics matter. We know that opinion polls matter, and as they face setbacks like this, and as the Trump administration faced setbacks on the executive order, time will tell whether or not the Republicans can kind of recover and come into 2018 with some goodwill from voters.
On the surface, you're going to hear that the relationships are still good. President Trump did say that on Friday, that he appreciates the work that Paul Ryan did on the bill. But obviously there's some thought and speculation that this could be a really negative thing for their relationship. What do you anticipate the relationship is like on the inside that we don't see?
Yes, as far as the GOP really having an identity crisis, I would almost say this is 7 or 8 years in the making.
Right.
If you think of the difference in like Sarah Palin and John McCain, that's kind of the best way to kind of explain how the two roads diverged there for the party. And as far as Trump and Paul Ryan go, if you think about like Breitbart, for example, which we know has worked closely with the Trump administration and Steve Bannon, they've been pretty selective in releasing some negative press on Paul Ryan in recent weeks. So I would have to think that this relationship is certainly strained, and that there's some frustration from both parties and maybe even a lack of trust there. 17
days is what they spent on health care, and this is obviously something that is so complicated. Why did they act so quickly on this, or try to?
Yes, and that's one that still has me puzzled. And as I talk to my students about this in our class on Congress, we're always kind of wondering what was the end game here, because it just did not go well from the start. And if you compare this to how the Democrats moved through on health care, they started thinking they could get moderate Republicans in. They worked for over 100 days on this bill in both chambers. While they voted strictly on party lines, it was a lot of backdoor dealing to kind of produce a bill that would work. Why they rushed so much is a bit beyond me. I do think they wanted to move to tax reform, and this would have freed up $1 trillion as they kind of went into that process to where they could have moved some money around, but certainly a breakneck speed for legislation this big.
Where do things go from here as pertains to health care reform? I mean, you mentioned the tax reform, so this may be burner for a little bit.
I believe it will go to the back burner. I don't know if you'll see maybe working groups in the background try to take this up in the House and Senate to see if they can put something more palatable in front of both the right and left wing of the party right now. So I think they'll move that forward. And then, but I think you're right, as Paul Ryan sounded kind of defeated on Friday afternoon, I think they're going to move on to other policies.
Yeah, Paul Ryan did say that Obamacare will be the law of the land for the foreseeable future as it pertains to health care. Dr. Lee Hanna of Wright State University, thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks.
All right, our time now is 7:38. Still to come this morning,